Hello and welcome to the Glassworks Music Podcast, Episode 4. With me today, we have Charlie Thorogood.
All right.
And Scott Layton. We're here to talk about... Well, what we're here to talk about today, Scott?
Well, we're here to talk about basically being a musician and what that entails.
Okay, so a bit later on in today's episode, we're going to be interviewing... Well, I'm going to be interviewing a brilliant musician called Michael O'Donoghue. He owns a shop in Folkestone called Plectrum's Pens and Paint on the Old High Street, so make sure you check that out if you're listening. Okay, Scott, so would you be able to introduce us to yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Scott Layton. I'm 18 years old. I play guitar and I sing, and I have a band and I write my own music.
Right, so what have you made so far?
I've made an EP with collaborations with IMP Studios in Canterbury.
Right.
After I won Canterbury Festival last year. And I've worked on loads of other stuff that I've written, preparing for recording albums and other EPs and singles and stuff like that.
Okay, so I know that you've been in a band and you're still in a band. Woodnote, tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, Woodnote. That was the name, but we kind of decided not to use it anymore.
Okay, so what is it now?
I'm thinking of just calling it Scott Layton, to be honest.
What, the band?
Yeah, just like John Mayer does. Like, he has a band, but he's called John Mayer.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a fair thing to do.
I mean, are you the head of a band or? Like,
Yeah.
So I mean, it does seem a little bit self-obsessed. I think you could look into different names a bit more,
No,
like
I mean,
Scott Layton and the blah blah blah.
I mean, we could do. They could choose to do that if they wanted to, but I mean, unless you've put a band together, you won't understand how hard it is to choose a band name.
Well, that's really true. I mean, a lot of band names generally have a name that is not the main person in the band. Take that one direction. They all have names that are based around their beliefs.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I believe a band name is very connected to the person that chooses it, and that is hard. The reason it's so hard to choose a band name is because when you've got 4 or 5 people,
Right.
you've all got to decide on something together.
Well, it's like a couple of weeks ago, Robert Field was on, and if you weren't listening to the podcast, he's in a band with a load of teachers, and their band name is Hands Up.
Which is a direct reference to a classroom
To a
where
classroom.
somebody would raise their hands
Yeah.
to get the teacher's attention, which is a very clever name.
Yeah, it is.
For a group of teachers in
Yeah.
a band. So I see what you mean, where if you haven't all got something in common, it's hard.
I mean, I chose the name Woodnote because there's a little story behind it, actually. Back when I was in year 10, I was studying media, and I used to get bored because I'd finished all my work and I had nothing to do. So I used to go on the dictionary and thesaurus online,
Right.
so I could look up better words to use in my essays in the future.
So you'd use like a dictionary to choose names.
Yeah.
That's...
But then, no, not in that way. But what happened is I went on the website and it had word of the day and it said Woodnote, and it means a natural, wild musical sound, right? So let's say like a bird song or sound you'd hear in the forest, right? And then later, a lot later, me and my friend, his name's Jake, he's been my friend since we were very young. He's my keyboard player, and we formed a duo and called it Woodnote. But then it kind of grew into a band.
I guess that leads on to my next question. Would you be able to tell us a bit more about each member of your band and how you formed?
Yeah, I can do. Like I just said, Jake, we just formed a little duo back doing covers before I started writing music. We go way back, very close, and he's a very talented pianist and obviously a great addition. Then we've got Jack, who is our drummer.
Okay.
I met Jack when I was in year 10, when I joined the Folkestone Academy, and we didn't really talk. Like, we only started talking when we started the Glassworks, and he was a fantastic drummer, so I asked him if he wanted to be in the band. And his friend Orin is our bass player, so we got him along on the ride as well. And we also had a guitarist called Robert Whitehead, who was fantastic, you know him.
Yeah, he's a brilliant guitarist.
But obviously he went to BIM this year to study in Brighton, and kind of lost him there, so we haven't got him anymore, which is quite sad.
I suppose that's quite a common thing that happens in bands. You always find,
Yeah.
like we take that, Robbie Williams left,
And then joined again,
yeah,
and then left again.
Yeah. There's only 3 of them now. I think a guy called Jason Orange left them as well.
They've had a kind of a rocky road, really.
They're a very
Like you
successful
say,
band, though.
He was a successful band.
Yeah.
He left, came back again, and now he's left again.
Yeah, I mean it's the way it's the way it goes.
I mean, One Direction split up, didn't they?
One
Look,
Direction are on hiatus at the moment.
What?
A hiatus. So Zayn Malik left, but
Yeah,
the
that
other
was a
four,
long time
the other
ago.
4 are working on solo careers at the moment, and they could reform in the future.
So
Yeah, I mean-
basically, what you're saying is they've gone a little bit quiet. To be honest, they've
If I'm
changed
honest,
from the little girly fangirl side of it to quite proper. I mean, you're like you say, they've become solo artists, and some of the solo stuff they've done.
I mean, Harry Styles, he did a single. I can't remember what it's called though. And Niall Horan, he's done one that I really like as well. I really like what they're doing as solo artists.
They're working on their own careers, really.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, it was X Factor, wasn't it?
yeah,
Simon, they were all solo,
Yeah, I know.
and Simon put them together, but that's not what they wanted. I mean, yeah, they made a lot of money out of being this band,
I
but
suppose they all want to.
they originally wanted to all go
touch.
solo.
Yeah.
So
Sort of opened the door for them, didn't it?
it's like they've grown up and then decided, you know what, I don't really want to carry on this band. I want to go solo.
Yeah.
Because that's what they originally wanted to do.
Mhm.
It's just, they were put in a band because of Simon Cowell. And he taught them what they needed to do.
and they did it.
And they did it.
And they did it well. Yeah, well, let's talk about inspirations now. Who inspires you, whether they be dead or alive? I mean,
This will be a long list if we're going to everything.
we'll find out Mike's inspirations later in his opinion on that,
We've
which
only
sort of baffled me really.
We've
But
only got 45 minutes, so...
well, that's plenty of time. Inspirations are really for people who are young
Yeah,
and
they're key.
and are aspiring to be big, which is yourself. I mean, you're only 18, so
Yeah.
who inspires you? I'm going to guess John Mayer, but
Yeah, definitely John Mayer. Especially when it comes to guitar and the songwriting aspect. He's fantastic. He honestly is.
right. And in terms of like sort of more deep guitar music, like in terms of rock, heavy metal, who inspires you there?
Well, I'd say definitely Kings of Leon. I love their music.
That's
But
sort of alternative rock, isn't it?
yeah. But also away from the sort of rocky stuff, with songwriting influences when it comes to acoustics, especially songs that I like to perform solo. Passenger, he's a massive one for me. And I went to see him in Brighton not too long ago. I think it was about 2 years ago now. And it was absolutely fantastic. And I've liked him ever since I first heard his music.
So you have many inspirations. Do you use that in your own work?
Yeah, I definitely do. Structure, I like to sort of follow what John Mayer does to a certain extent. With storytelling and the sort of beauty in the way it's put together, I
Right.
like to take that from Passenger. And with a lot of the sort of upbeat stuff and riffs and all this sort of stuff, I like to take that from Kings of Leon. So the three of them all sort of intertwine to give me
With
that
each other,
sort of, yeah.
That's a good outlook. What's your take on inspiration then, Charlie?
So I've never really been inspired to play music. I'm more listen to it. So, I mean, my inspiration of music was my sister, because she was the one. Of course, she's older than me, and she always showed me all these bands. When I was younger, I never really had single albums. It would have been like the Now 70 and Now 71. Like the
A
Now
wide
CDs, which
range
were
of
the
different-
collaborations of them.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got into a few of those bands. And then my sister, Rosie, got me into the just the bands. So it started off with, I think it was Alt J. It started off with. I'm not sure if he's around anymore making music. Haven't really heard much from him because I kind of went off him later on. But it's evolved into stuff like 21 Pilots. But now I'm older, I'm choosing my own music as well.
Yeah.
Stuff like Blur and Nirvana and older bands, but people still listen to them and it's still considered good music.
So, Scott, what would you say to aspiring musicians? What is your genre, would you say?
Do you know what? That's with the variety of what I write, it's harder to put myself in a category than it is to even choose a band name.
Right. That's
Folk
quite-
rock. That would be the main one, I reckon.
Because I remember you said rock isn't your main genre, but
No,
but
it depends what you mean by rock.
yeah.
I mean, rock is so broad. I mean, you could have folk rock, you could have heavy
alternative
metal.
rock, indie rock.
You know, it really is a wide spectrum. But I'm more of a folk rock player.
So folk is your sort of
Yeah, but you can't get folk and folk rock confused, because folk rock is like Passenger, Ed Sheeran, that sort of stuff. It's where they tell a story in the song. right? But folk, traditional folk, would be like fiddle players, you know, from my understanding anyway, you know, stuff like that.
So like, the cliche folk music is actually quite accurate. Where
Yeah.
it would have been some
Yeah.
country, like quite old person country with an acoustic guitar, which
Yeah.
is slightly out of tune.
Mm.
And
I mean,
and
folk,
a tin
folk,
whistle.
folk means people, so it's the people's music. I mean, it all
Folks,
originates
really, isn't
from
it?
way back in
Oh yeah, it would have been.
say when only the rich would be able to hear like orchestras and stuff. So people in towns, in like inns, they'd play their own music with instruments. They'd put things together. They'd write their own songs, and that's where it sort of came from. You know, that's why it's folk.
So I guess this sort of explains to the people listening about your journey that has come so far. What are your future plans?
Just to keep writing music, try and get as many shows as I can. I mean, I've been offered a show on Friday with a good friend of mine. He's absolutely fantastic. He's toured loads of places. Recently toured Scotland.
Right.
And yeah, he's playing at the Lion Bar on Friday, and he's invited me along. So I'm wondering whether to do that.
Are you going to release any music in the future that maybe isn't folk rock like your main genre?
It's a tough one because I've got plans for some stuff to come soon. I've got a record in the works at the moment, which I think has a lot of potential. And I've also got quite a few more that I'd like to get recorded as soon as possible. Right. I mean, I'm ready definitely for another EP, possibly an LP, but I'm trying to work towards an album. I have the songs, but it's just putting them together properly.
Okay.
So, for people who are listening, I mean, you explained how you started off with it just being you and one of your friends. How would you influence people who are listening to become who they want to be, like to start up a band?
Right. Sort of
It can't
like
be easy.
my keys for success.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not really qualified to say that yet. But I'd say if you have a dream, don't let it die. Just keep pushing and never give up, and find like-minded people.
Right.
So say if you like rock music, like heavy rock music, don't look for someone who likes, you know, gentle, relaxed songs. Look for someone that wants to do what you want to do. Look for someone who likes rock, like heavy rock. You got to mix with like-minded people. Same as if you want to do electronica. Find someone who wants to do electronica. So if you want a band, you need to find those people. And if you put yourself out there, you will find them. There's an abundance of musicians. They're everywhere. It's just about picking the ones that are right for you and working together.
Yeah.
And also just keep writing music. Sometimes it's going to be terrible, especially when you first start, but you just got to keep going and the good stuff will come out eventually.
Tell us a bit more about your educational journey.
Well, what with music?
Yeah.
I started studying music in year 10 at the Folkestone Academy, and it was pretty fun. It was new to me because I only started playing guitar 2 months before that. So it was all very fresh.
So you've been playing guitar for about 4 years then?
Well, 3 years. 3 years and 2 months. And I sort of went on with that. I did pretty well, got distinction. And then moved on to the Glassworks, where I am now. And I'm studying music technology and performance. And it's going pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
And, well, so you study music technology. What do you take any aspects from that and apply it to your music performance work and vice versa?
It's great to understand how everything works. So say if I've got pedals for guitar or an amplifier, it's great to know how to work it better. Mm-hmm. And say when I'm in the studio, I can understand what's going on. I can have a little part in it, in the recording process. I know how to set up my equipment properly at a live event. So yeah, it has armed me with good knowledge for performance.
Well, the good thing with that is that at the stage you're in your performing career, you won't need roadies to set your stuff up. You can do that yourself, which is quite useful. It means you don't have to get people in to do it.
I'll tell you a funny story about that if you want. So I was playing Canterbury Festival last year, and it cost, I think it was £5-6 for a ticket to get in.
Right.
And my dad and my friend, they wanted to come. but we decided to save money. We'd try something. So I walked in, I gave my guitar to my friend, and I said that he was my roadie. Like, basically acted as if he was my roadie, and my dad was my manager.
Yeah.
And we all just walked in, so they didn't have to pay for tickets. So
Um,
it feels good when you got someone carrying your equipment.
you do realise that's illegal.
Well, maybe, but to be fair,
On that,
he did carry my guitar in, so technically he was my
Technically,
roadie.
he was your roadie.
on that
Yeah.
topic, before we move on to music festivals, we're going to cut over now to the interview I did with Michael O'Donoghue at the music shop. We'll be back in a bit. Hello and welcome to the Glassworks music podcast interview. With me I have Michael O'Donoghue. How you doing, Mike?
Hi.
So I've got 5 questions for you today. The first one is, how did you begin your musical journey and how did you first experience the rock genre?
Well, if you were born in the 70s, you'll probably experience the rock genre quite easily, really. Started playing at 14, and most of the bands that were around at that time were either really awful pop outfits, I don't know, Basic Rollers, people like that. And if you weren't into them, then you had to be into something else. There wasn't really much middle ground, you know. Those people were sharing the charts with the Deep Purple and Black Sabbath of this world. You know, that's what the charts was like.
And so you obviously in a few bands. Grand Prix is the one that I know that you was in the late 70s, early 80s. Did any of your music ever get in the charts?
I think one of our singles got to about 69 or something like
69.
that, and one of our albums got in the top 50s.
Which album hit was that?
That might have been the last one. Might have been Samurai.
So Samurai was in terms of years, is your latest one?
Yes.
So Samurai by Grand Prix. Make sure you check that out. I'm sure you can find that on YouTube, I'm guessing.
It seems to be all over the place on the net if you look hard enough.
So were you releasing, in terms of like the way people can listen to music, were you releasing music on CDs or vinyls or tapes? Which one was most prominent for you?
Well, in those days it was vinyl.
So you have vinyl
Yeah.
albums?
Yeah. They were. I mean, I still think they're the best form to listen to
And they're
music
coming,
onto.
they're coming back now. I mean, a few podcasts ago, I don't know if you've listened to any of them, but we had a guy on called Rob Field, and he has found that vinyls are now coming back and that they're selling at shops like Sainsbury's.
Mm. Someone, I don't know how true it is, was telling me recently that they're outstripping CDs in terms of sales.
Yeah.
Not downloads, but
In terms of sales, in 2000
physical media.
In 2015, I believe CDs sold less than vinyls did, which is crazy. They're being phased out for streaming, MP3, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, you know, with vinyl, and it used to be a classic thing for us. You know, we'd get the album sleeve, and you know, you could open it up most times, and it's a centerfold, and there'd be pictures in it and all that sort of stuff, and you could read the detail on it. You know, the CD, I mean, I know my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, but even so, it's like you need a microscope to figure out what's going on them, you know.
Exactly, yeah. If you move on to the next question now, if you could sum up the rock genre, how would you describe it, and what would you say to aspiring rock musicians?
I'm not so sure you can sum up, you know, the rock genre. I mean, I think everyone knows what it is, and you either feel it or you don't feel it.
Yeah.
As for aspiring musicians, you just get out there, you just get your instrument, and you just practice, and you get out there and you see the bands that appeal to you. You know, you can't just... Well, listen, you can stay at home in your bedroom for as long as you like, you know, I suppose, and you can become very good that way, but I don't think you're going to really experience that much until you get out and about, go to the clubs and see the bands that you like, and then start playing with people.
That's an interesting point. So, in terms of like where you started out, so Grand Prix, did you start out by playing in pubs and then you progressed onto doing live shows slowly, like getting more and more a fan base, and then doing
of course,
tours?
That's the way that it always works. I mean, Grand Prix per se never actually did a pub gig.
Really?
Because we weren't even called that before we got signed. we'd started off life as a band called Raw Deal, and then as it went on, we became a band called Paris, and then we played larger gigs, and got a residency at the Golden Lion, and we got seen there.
So what record labels were you with over the course of your, I believe it was 6 years?
Yeah, RCA. And Chrysalis.
Are they still going today?
I don't know whether Chrysalis is. I think RCA is probably going in some form.
Yeah.
Most of these companies have all been taken over by huge, bigger conglomerates, whether it's Universal, Warner's, or Sony.
Yeah. So, being in several bands in the past, and are you still in a few bands now?
No, I was in Bronze for a while.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there was a guy like Mr. Gillam, or...
I did some live touring with the Ian Gillan band.
Yeah, Ian Gillan.
For about a year.
So, being in several bands, how would you depict the experience of being in a band, and how can people check out your music on the various music platforms?
Well, you can all check out the music online. You start putting in the details of bands or whatever, you'll be able to come across it. But the experience of live, I think most people know that, really, because most people have done it in some format. It doesn't have to be in a rock format or even a musical one. There are quite a lot of people out there that do theatre work and underground. It's basically just about getting up in front of an audience. And whether you get out and play guitar or stand up and tell a joke, the feeling is much the same.
So, is there anyone in the music industry in the present time that inspires you? And in reverse to that, is there any older, perhaps late musicians that inspired you? I know your musical career has been going for probably almost 30 years, perhaps longer. Is there anyone that inspired you in the beginning and that inspired you today, whether they be dead or alive? It's always a tough question.
Well, it is really, because when you talk about inspiration, it usually denotes that you're young and looking to be inspired. So all the early great guitar players used to inspire me. The Hendrix, the Pages, and those are the people that I aspire to be as good as, if I could be. As of now, I'm not really inspired by anyone. Though that doesn't mean that I don't listen to music and think, that's something I haven't heard before. Yeah. I was listening to something the other. When was it? I heard something by a medium that I wouldn't normally listen to. I think it was Norwegian Siegfried. Have you heard of her?
No.
She was really good. Yeah, really good. And that's why I always watch Jules Holland.
So,
because Jules Holland, he'll get some of the old stalwarts on there, but he'll also have the latest in what's happening.
I mean, I suppose going back to your Norwegian singer, do you like to listen to music that perhaps isn't the main genre that you listen to usually? Like, because you're a fan of guitars, rock, heavy metal, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean. But I only got really, in some respects, into that by accident. I mean, I first started out playing soul and funk, which I still listen to and still enjoy. So yeah, I'm quite eclectic in my musical tastes. And what I actually listen to. Even when I was making albums, I was probably at that stage quite rarely listening to a lot of rock. At the time that I was making it. Making it was enough.
So, I guess that leads on to the final question about what your future holds in terms of music. What's next for you, and do you plan to release any other form of music, such as solo songs, or a type of music that isn't your main genre?
Yes, in a couple of years, I intend to start work on a project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on a sort of blues soul vein, with a touch of funk and a touch of rock.
So would that come under alternative rock or indie even?
I wouldn't have thought it would be indie. It might be though. One never knows how it's going to turn out.
I mean, we talk quite a lot anyway, because obviously I work I worked here in the shop for 2 years, but I haven't heard anything about this project that you're planning, which is quite interesting for me.
Well, the project sort of starts when this ends.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I don't have time to devote to two things really, and so once this gets wrapped up.
Well, speaking about this, the listeners probably don't know what we're talking about. How did you get into opening a music shop?
I just wanted to get out of London, really, and I didn't want to remain in the job I was in. I'd gone back to college to learn about computers.
That's quite interesting, really.
And I just didn't want to do them anymore, really.
What was something that confuses me is why people who are really good musicians really good musicians who are on tour doing rocking out guitar with their bandmates, releasing albums, choose to decide to stop and just have a quieter life as they get older. It's always
most people want a quieter life as they get older, but I don't think musicians really tend to want to stop. They tend to get stopped.
Oh, right. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, you can get bad breaks. You can, we've had things like all our equipment being impounded by the VAT man because a past manager hadn't paid the bill unbeknownst to us. And,
it's a sad way to go, really.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to drag yourself back up, especially when you've reached a point. Where you think you've done all the hard work, and then you think you've got to do it again, and you start thinking, well, I'll just go about it a different way.
Your love of guitar has never stopped because you're probably the best guitarist I know out of anyone. I mean, it never fades away, if you know what I mean. It never goes.
But it's like learning another language. You never really forget it. You'll probably get a bit rusty, but once you get back to the country and there's that environment again, you'll probably pick it up again.
So, I think that wraps up this interview. I just want to thank you so much for doing this.
No, that's right. That's my pleasure. Oh, and as a little plug, my old keyboard player has a solo album out at the moment.
Really? What's that called?
If You Think I'm Crazy. So take a listen. That's quite good too.
What's his name?
Phil Lansden.
So Phil Lansden, Do You Think I'm Crazy?
If You Think I'm Crazy.
Sorry.
Even.
Yeah, I'm probably crazy for that. So, thank you very much, Mike. I think that wraps up this week's interview.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to Reading Festival.
Right, so, last week, if you've been listening since then, you would have known that I had talked about
Glastonbury.
Yeah. And this week, once again, I have my book by Rob DeBank. Same book, A to Z of Music Festivals. Recommend you get it. And the first line in it, no word of a lie, is, okay, you've done Glastonbury. So,
Yeah, you have, definitely.
So he goes on to describe that no hardcore festival goer can hold their own around a campfire without a stash of Reading anecdotes.
Right.
He's quite literate, I've got to admit. So it describes that it started off as a jazz festival. In Richmond in 1961.
Right, so in 1961, the Reading Festival began as a jazz festival.
Yeah.
And they must have moved on from that, inviting bands on, I'm guessing.
And they went into punk and blues.
Right.
And then rock, heavy metal. So, going on into, Iggy Pop. If that's a band or a genre, I don't know. Same thing.
Take us through the history of it, starting from 1961 then.
Well, this doesn't really describe much about the history of Reading, but it describes his experience of Reading and what he thought of it. Yeah. So, of course, it's going on about rock, where he's saying some of the acts weren't the easiest on the eardrums, which I'm not surprised because it is rock.
Yeah, it is.
There were rock concerts up there. Well, not so much concerts, but sets up there. Along with...
So I'm reading on here, in 2006, the Reading Festival sold out in 2 hours.
That's 2 hours.
Insane.
And bearing in mind, at that point, the internet hadn't really...
Took off yet.
Took off. it was still a little bit quiet on there, and that would have been, I don't know how they would have been sold at that time, probably over the phone. And Mean Fiddler took the advantage of the government's late light licensing laws to allow there to be
events later into the night.
Yeah, to go later into the night.
Right. So at that point, they like such as fireworks and stuff couldn't be let off after a certain time. I think it's currently 11 p.m. or midnight.
And if you've ever been to a music festival or any sort of festival, car show, you will know that people break those laws.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if it's the same out in France, but me and my dad were recently at Le Mans.
Yeah.
For the 24-hour race, which is noisy anyway. I mean, it starts at 4 in the afternoon and ends at 4 in the afternoon the next day. So
it's
all
like
through that night, it is just constant of these huge, monstrous cars driving around. And it's the equivalent of getting the loudest car you could ever think of, starting it up and sleeping next to it, because it's just constant noise from the crowd. Because there's people who will sit in the crowd and sit there for, you couldn't sit there for 24 hours straight because the heat was intense.
It'd be very hot.
But the night after, I mean, there was fireworks all night.
Right.
And once again, people wouldn't sleep. And that's the same as it is in music festivals. Not so much V12 monster cars, but fireworks, and there'll be people who'll bring speakers, because there won't be music all into the night.
So, Scott, have you seen anyone at a festival or a concert? I mean, usually you'd be playing at them, but have you seen anyone live?
I can't say I have, to be honest. I've never been to a festival. It's not really my thing.
So, Charlie, what advice would you give to Scott?
What, on festivals?
Yeah. I remember last week you said to Anthony about working for a
Yeah,
Glastonbury ticket.
So you say festivals aren't really your thing?
It depends what festival it is. I mean, have you heard of Pink Pop?
I don't know. Let's have a look.
It's not in this country.
No,
it's over
but
in
this
Holland.
is A to Z worldwide.
Right, it's in
Okay,
Holland.
so Pink Pop.
I'd love to go to Pink Pop. I mean, Passenger played it recently again.
133.
Kings
What
of Leon
country,
played it.
out of interest, is Pink Pop in?
Hold
Holland.
on, I'll find out now. So Pink Pop.
I'm guessing it's like a festival. In
It's in the Netherlands. It's
in Holland.
Yeah, quite a famous outdoor festival.
Fair enough. I remember you saying you wanted to go to the
An
Netherlands.
unmissable
Scott.
fixtures on every headbanger's calendar.
What was that?
An unmissable fixture on every headbanger's calendar. So you're into quite heavy.
No, it's not that. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on there. I mean, Passenger main stage is I've done it a few times. I'd love to go and see things like that. And Kings of Leon, they did it recently. Like I said, stuff like that. It's just, I'd love to go there. John Mayer did it. Ed Sheeran's done it. Loads of people have done it.
I would like to point out, though, people do make the common mistake of it only being Reading Festival. It is Reading and Leeds Festival. They want
So it's Leeds as well.
But in completely different locations.
Yeah.
So I think it's a 2-day event. So one day, Ed Sheeran on main stage at Reading.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he's finished that set, he'll be on his bus going to Leeds to perform main stage the next day at Leeds.
Yeah.
Because it's such high demand for such a prominent artist in the world now, it gets out of hand, really, because, I mean, there's just constant travelling back and forth of these artists.
I mean, a lot of festivals, they are placed at popular destinations around the country, and it takes most people several hours to get there, unless you live in the area.
Yeah.
Obviously, Glastonbury, I'm guessing, is around Hampshire sort of way.
So it does say here,
Yeah.
I've got it on my PowerPoint in front of me, the festival sold out in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Strangely, in 2008, all the tickets for Reading and Leeds Festival sold out in 24 hours. So that makes you think, what made it different? It could have been...
It's progression, isn't it? Could have
Well,
been
no, 'cause it was 2006. It could have been who was performing.
Yeah.
Because I know Glastonbury this year sold out within... I think it was under an hour. I mean,
So-
the website went down for a while.
In 2000, Rage Against the Machine appeared on stage with bags on their heads and in prison garb. This was a direct criticism of Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
And then C60 proves you can make music with a block of wood and piece of string.
I think there's one on here about, there was a band, I can't remember who it was, but as some bands have experienced, if you carry on in life, you'll probably experience it at one point. And for anyone who's seen the Blues Brothers, it is a lot like that. There will be stuff thrown at you. People don't enjoy the music you're playing half the time, but some people do. And there was a year, I mean, mostly they're subject to people who have thrown bottles of urine at them because, of course, you're in the crowd and you don't want to go to the toilets because you've got that place in the crowd. One year, out of all the things that could have been thrown at them, what do you think was thrown at them?
I don't know.
Just guess something that you'd think would be most likely to throw at a band. You think it'd be something quite easy, like a bottle or a can or something.
Apple?
An apple core. Okay, they had an inflatable child's paddling pool thrown at them. A band had an inflatable paddling pool thrown at them. I mean, how the people who threw that at them managed to get it there, blow it up.
Is this going back to that sliding down a mud path past the donut store?
Well, yeah, because it's just... I mean, this is what you miss out on festivals. If you're not going to festivals, you won't experience these kind of things.
Right.
So, once again, I will say to everyone who is listening... God, I say it like I'm on the radio. That if you want to do a music festival like Glastonbury, go on the website and you've got to contact them and apply to work.
Yeah.
This can only be done at a certain deadline. You can't go and do it now if we're in 2023. And you pay a certain amount towards your ticket.
Yeah.
And do the work.
Yeah.
And they'll give you the money back. But if you don't do the work and you
They
just
say,
mooch it off,
screw
then
off.
they won't give you the money back. And most likely ask you to pay the rest. The thing is, though, you say you can sneak in. Have you listened to last week's?
I listened to part of it.
Because Rob, I don't know if that's his name, but
Rob?
Anthony.
It was Anthony and... Oh, wait.
No, Rob the bank.
Rob the bank. Right.
He explained how he and his wife, his girlfriend at the time, crawled across a field to get to Glastonbury when they could have paid somebody £10 just to climb over a ladder. So, I don't know what year they went in, but it must have been in one of the years where it wasn't as easy, because nowadays it's near on impossible to sneak into a festival. I mean, my sister recently came back and she had a wristband on. She was working for them, so she had a different kind of wristband. She had access to most fields. She had private access to the workers' field, where they had, instead of you camping next to somebody else, where you've got to cross your guy lines around each other, they had set spaces, they had private areas, they had proper toilets and showers. There's proper toilets and showers on site for the people who work.
Really. Yeah.
Proper charging station, and of course you had access to most fields, access to the staff bar, where you still had to pay festival prices, but
It's fair enough.
you had a private bar to be able to go to where you're not bumping into people who are staggering about with a pint.
So I think we should pick up on this again next week, like part 2 of the Reading.
Well, I will carry on with back to Le Mans, getting into them areas, going on about how it's impossible to sneak into places.
Okay.
So they, like barcodes. They have barcode scanners, barcodes on the tickets, so they scanned you in and they scanned you out. So if they scanned you in, you went round along the fence and handed the ticket to them. They would scan it and it would make a different noise because it had already been scanned. And then you've got the problem that you can't get that ticket back to your friend.
No.
Because they've walked off thinking that you'll be able to get in. Whereas when my dad first went, he told me that in that time they just looked at the ticket, so they decided to colour photocopy about 10 of these tickets so they could all go down in...
Wait, isn't that illegal?
Well, this was, I don't know, 1980-something.
It's about 30 years ago then.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, I think my dad was in his 20s when he first went, and if you think about it, colour photocopying wasn't that big, that wasn't easy back then. And they just walked through, because in them days we just looked at your ticket going, well, yeah, carry on through. So it goes to show nowadays that don't try sneaking into a music festival, because A, you'll get arrested, B, you'll make a bit of a wally of yourself. I mean, anyone who tries to sneak into Glastonbury, they've got a lot against them.
So,
I mean, 2 years ago, I think they spent about $1.5 million just on a perimeter fence to stop people getting through.
so what can we expect from what can we look forward to next week in episode 5?
I might do more of a European music festival.
Okay.
This has gone on YouTube, right?
Yes.
'Cause
This is on YouTube.
If anyone does listen to this, put in the comments about a certain band, or not a certain band, a certain festival that you've experienced, which isn't either Glastonbury or Reading, or the Isle of Wight Festival,
And we'll
or
cover
the
it if we
Reading
can.
Festival, or the Leeds Festival, and I'll do my best to cover it, because not all festivals are in this book.
Yeah, and on saying that, we really would like your feedback on this podcast.
Yeah.
So give any feedback you can. Maybe even a like. But
I mean, I could do Latitude next week.
I suppose for the final part of the podcast then, we should, I think, Scott, you're going to perform us a song, aren't you?
Yeah, I can do.
What one's this?
Well, this will be a song I wrote not too long ago now. It's quite a recent one. And this will be the first sort of performance I've done of it, really.
So, Scott, take it away with your performance.
Alright, this is Fixated.
I wasn't looking for love, but you seemed to cross my mind. Now I can't help but dream about you. I want you to be mine. How the fire burned that night as the flames danced in your eyes. Then you pressed your lips on mine as the stars lit up the skies. 'Cause I didn't think that anything could be so perfect. And I'm still trying to figure out what I've done to deserve it. With you by my side and your hand in mine, I'm falling for you. I'm fixated. I'm fixated on you. If I tried to draw you, you'd be a perfect work of art. But these hands would fail to capture the feelings in my heart. 'Cause I didn't think that anything could be so perfect. And I'm still trying to figure out what I've done to deserve this. But with you by my side and your hand in mine, I'm falling for you. I'm fixated. I'm fixated on you. Oh, darling, on you. As we lay down to rest, you pull me in so near. You wrap your arms around me so tightly as if I'd disappear. Then I lean in to kiss your cheek and I whisper in your ear. There's no place I'd rather be than right now, right here with you. 'Cause I didn't think that anything could be this perfect.
Thank you very much for listening to the Glassworks Music Podcast, episode 4. We'll be back next week with Ollie Hine and Charlie Rolfe, focusing on underground music. I'm guessing you'll be back next week as well, Charlie.
I will be.
Okay, so we'll catch you guys then. Take it easy.